ID apartment complex on South 49th Avenue, 61-year-old Carol Bonnet finishes another long day at Methodist Hospital, where he works in maintenance. He's the type of neighbor who waves, keeps his porch clean, and never misses rent. Everyone who knows him says the same thing. He's reliable, predictable, safe. That's why, when he doesn't show up for work the next morning, it's immediately noticed. Co-workers call. No answer. The next day, still nothing. Finally, on October 19th, a concerned colleague contacts police. Officers arrive at his apartment around 8:30 p.m., knock twice, and get no response. When they force the door open, what they find is anything but ordinary. The place looks ransacked. Drawers pulled out, papers scattered, and in the bathroom, the faint smell of bleach. On the sink, streaks of blood. Wiped, but not completely gone. Whoever was here tried to clean up. Carol lies in the bedroom, stabbed multiple times. It's a brutal end for a man who lived such a simple life. Detectives begin processing the scene. They find several latent fingerprints. Smudged, partial, barely visible. A few are in the bathroom, as if the killer tried to wash away the evidence. Others are on the doorframe. The prints are carefully lifted, labeled and stored in the property room at the Omaha Police Department. They also note that Carol's 1977 Chrysler New Yorker is missing. 2 days later, that car turns up 240 miles away, abandoned in Mount Vernon, Illinois. It's been wiped down, but officers there find additional fingerprints, again, partial, incomplete. The prints are compared against local and state records, mailed across multiple jurisdictions, and even sent to outside agencies. No match. For years, the case moves through hands, boxes, and shelves. Detectives retire. New technology comes, but hundreds of unsolved murders compete for attention. Carol's file joins a growing list of cold cases. Decades pass. The evidence sits in a storage locker labeled Bonnet C. Then, in 2008, something changes. Omaha's crime lab technician, Laura Casey, is working through old evidence for a new cold case review. When she reaches Bonnet's folder, the age of the prints catches her attention. She knows about a new national system the FBI has been developing, the Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System, or IAFIS, a massive database that holds over 70 million criminal records. Prints that once went nowhere could now be compared nationwide. On November 17, 2008, Casey uploads the decades-old prints from the crime scene into IAFIS. The system processes them against millions of known offenders. Less than 5 hours later, a match comes back. The name means nothing to her, just a series of letters on a screen. She doesn't tell anyone yet. First, she verifies it manually, comparing ridge endings, bifurcations, and minutiae points under a magnifier. Every ridge matches. Casey sends her results to the cold case squad, and Detective Doug Heraut takes over. He begins tracing the suspect's history and uncovers something chilling. Back in 1978, this same man lived just blocks away from where Carol's stolen car had been found in Illinois. The timeline fits too perfectly to ignore. But there's more. Inside the original evidence box, Heraut finds an old classified ad flyer from Carol's home with a handwritten note. Jerry W., scribbled in pen. The killer's name, Jerry Watson. Heraut realizes time is running out. The man whose print was found in the apartment is serving time for burglary in Illinois, but he's set to be released in a matter of days. If he walks, there's a chance they'll lose him forever. Hiraut travels to Illinois immediately. He confronts the man face to face and presents a court order to collect a DNA sample. It's sent to the lab. Days later, the results come back. A perfect match to biological evidence preserved from the original scene in Omaha. The fingerprint, the DNA, the car, the ad, it all points to the same person. After 33 years, the mystery unravels. On October 17, 2011, exactly 33 years to the day Carol Bonnet was found murdered, the suspect is convicted and sentenced to life in prison. The FBI recognizes the case as a benchmark in forensic perseverance. In 2012, Laura Casey and Detective Hiraut received the Latent Hit of the Year award for their work, a national honor given for cases solved through fingerprint identification. Carol's family, after decades of silence, finally hears the words they thought they never would. Case closed. It's proof that even the faintest trace, a single thumbprint left on a bathroom sink in 1978, can still speak, even after 30 years of silence. The scratch that waited 42 years. It's a crisp Thursday morning, October 15, 1981, in Carmel, California. The coastal air smells of pine and sea salt. 30-year-old Sonia Carmen Herrock Stone wakes early in her modest home on Hatton Road, a quiet street dotted with cypress trees. She makes breakfast for her 4-year-old daughter, packs a lunchbox, and walks her to preschool, waving as the little girl disappears through the gate. Neighbors remember Sonia as calm and graceful, a single mother, meticulous about her garden, always smiling. The day should have been ordinary. It wasn't. Around 3 p.m., when Sonia fails to pick up her daughter from school, teachers start calling. By early evening, officers from the Monterey County Sheriff's Office are at her door. They step inside to silence and horror. The living room shows no sign of forced entry. A purse sits open on the couch. But in the bedroom, drawers are pulled out, the bedspread torn, a lamp overturned. Sonia lies motionless. Her cause of death? Strangulation. Her own pantyhose used as the weapon. Detectives notice something crucial. One of Sonia's fingernails, her left ring nail, is broken clean off. Underneath it, dried blood. Whoever she fought left a piece of themselves behind. Investigators work around the clock. They list everyone who knew her. Friends, co-workers, neighbors. The next morning, October 16th, a detective canvassing the area stops at a home directly across the street. The man who answers is in his mid-20s, calm, polite, but there's a fresh 3 to 4 inch scratch down his right cheek. "How'd that happen?" the detective asks. He smiles and says, "Cut plexiglass in my garage." Later that day, when his parents are questioned, they give a different story. He got it in a fight at Monterey Peninsula College. 2 explanations. 1 scratch, and no one else in the neighborhood with a mark like that. Still, this is 1981. DNA testing is years away. Analysts collect samples, take photographs, and send evidence to the California Department of Justice Crime Lab. Nothing ties anyone to the crime. In 1982, prosecutors take a chance. The suspect is charged with first-degree murder. The case goes to trial in 1983, lasting nearly 2 weeks. But the evidence is circumstantial: scratches, proximity, odd behavior, and no conclusive physical link. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returns deadlocked 9-3 for not guilty. With no unanimous verdict, a mistrial is declared. The file is boxed. labeled Herrock Stone Homicide 1981, and placed into storage. Years turn into decades. Sonia's daughter grows up, moves away, starts a family of her own, still haunted by a crime that no one could prove. The man across the street keeps living his life, aging quietly while the case fades from headlines into memory. Then, nearly 40 years later, in 2020, the newly formed Monterey County District Attorney's Cold Case Task Force begins reviewing long unsolved homicides. Detective Aris Wilson pulls the Herrock Stone file from the archive. Inside are hundreds of photographs, witness notes, and two critical pieces of evidence: that broken fingernail and a biological swab preserved from Sonia's body. This time, technology is on their side. The fingernail clipping and swab are sent to the California Department of Justice Bureau of Forensic Services. Technicians Josh Sehat, Christopher Tanforin, Megan Mannion-Gray, and Lynn Schultz extract minute traces of DNA that 1980s science couldn't touch. Weeks later, a report lands on Wilson's desk. The samples contain male DNA consistent across both pieces of evidence. They run it through CODIS, the National DNA Database. The computer hums, processes, and returns a profile, a name investigators have seen before. A man who, in 1981, lived directly across the street from Sonia Herrock Stone. His name was Michael Scott Glazebrook. 4 decades of silence are about to end. Detectives track him down, now in his 60s, still living along California's Central Coast. They present the results: the blood beneath Sonia's fingernail, the genetic material from the swab. There's no denying it. He is arrested and charged once again with first-degree murder, the same crime that slipped through the cracks in 1983. In March 2023, the retrial begins in Monterey County Superior Court before Judge Pamela L. Butler. Over 8 intense days, prosecutors lay out a story that's haunted the community for 4 decades. A home invasion, a struggle, a fight for life that left its proof beneath one broken nail. The defense points to the past mistrial, argues contamination, time, and doubt. But DNA doesn't age. It doesn't change its story. After 9 hours of deliberation, the jury returns guilty. They also find true 2 special allegations: that the murder occurred during the commission or attempted commission of rape, and that the defendant personally used a deadly weapon. On April 26, 2023, the judge sentences him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In court, Sonia's now grown daughter sits in the gallery, tears running silently down her face. She was 4 years old when she lost her mother. 42 years later, she finally hears a verdict that speaks for both of them. Detectives, forensic scientists, and prosecutors stand together outside afterward. For them, the case symbolizes everything cold case work means: science, patience, and justice refusing to expire. In the end, it wasn't high-tech gadgets or a sudden confession that solved the mystery. It was a single broken fingernail, fragile, overlooked, but carrying the truth through 4 decades of silence. That scratch across one man's cheek back in October 1981 was never just a mark. It was the voice of the woman who fought back, and whose fight finally told the world what happened. He Ranger who wouldn't let go. It's December 14th, 1969, in Houston, Texas, a cold, quiet Sunday evening. The hum of Christmas lights glows across storefronts. The air smells faintly of rain. At exactly 6:45 p.m., 25-year-old Diane Maxwell Jackson pulls into the Southwestern Bell parking lot for her night shift. She's punctual, careful, the kind of young mother who double locks her car doors and never misses a day of work. She closes her door, checks her purse, and starts toward the building. She never makes it inside. When Diane doesn't come home the next morning, her co-workers call the police. Hours later, officers discover a scene that will haunt Houston for decades. Inside an abandoned shack near the lot lies Diane Maxwell Jackson, a woman whose life was cut short before sunrise. Detectives mark it as a robbery murder, but nothing adds up. Her belongings are scattered. Some items are missing, others oddly arranged. No eyewitnesses, no security cameras, no modern forensics. It's 1969, long before DNA or digital databases. Still, one thing stands out. On the metal of her car's door, a faint, oily ridge. Investigators collect it, label it, and send it to the Texas Department of Public Safety. Weeks pass, no match. Her case goes cold before the new decade even begins. Diane's younger brother, David Maxwell, is shattered. He's in college, studying law, dreaming of becoming an attorney. But after her funeral, something in him changes. He withdraws his applications and joins the Texas State Highway Patrol. Colleagues say he talked little about his sister, but every arrest, every traffic stop, was shadowed by her memory. Over the years, David climbs the ranks, first a trooper, then a Texas Ranger. He becomes one of those agents known for catching the impossible. But behind the reputation is an unspoken vow. Someday, somehow, I'll find who took Diane. 2 decades later, it's 1989. The world has changed. Computers in every office, forensics growing sharper. But Diane's file sits in HPD's basement, dust thick as velvet across its cover. David requests it personally. Officers remember the name. Some still recall the scene. Together, they reopen the box. Inside, photographs yellowed by time, a corroded ring, and that single fingerprint card marked Unknown Male Number 1. He pushes for retesting. New technicians rescan the print using Texas's Automated Fingerprint Identification System, AFIS, but the search turns up nothing. The ridge patterns of Houston remain silent. Still, David refuses to close it again. Someone touched her car, he tells a colleague. That means someone is out there. By the early 2000s, the world is different again. Digital databases now stretch nationwide. The FBI's IAFIS launches, promising instant matches across all 50 states. Cold case detectives begin feeding in prints from decades past. Among the thousands of submissions is a single file from Houston, Diane Maxwell Jackson, 1969. On July 23, 2003, inside the Texas Department of Public Safety Crime Lab, latent print technician Jill Kincaid reruns that card through IAFIS. The computer hums for hours, then it stops. 20 names appear. One at the top blinks green. A man with a rap sheet stretching back to the 1960s. His name is James Ray Davis. Burglary, assault, theft. He'd been arrested countless times and released countless times. For days, Kincaid and Houston PD's Sergeant James Ramsey verify every ridge under magnification. The match is absolute. The man was in Houston in 1969, recently released from prison just 9 days before the murder. Ramsey and state investigators track him to a small house near the Texas-Arkansas border. The man answers the door, older now, gray hair. The kind of calm that comes from decades of getting away with something. He's told there's an old case to discuss. Inside an interrogation room, they lay out photos. The shack, the car, the fingerprint. For a long minute, he stares, silent. Then his eyes drop. What he says next ends 34 years of unanswered questions. He confesses. In November 2003, the man pleads guilty to first-degree murder. After nearly 34 years, Diane's case is closed. David Maxwell sits quietly in the courtroom as the sentence is read. Life in prison. The man who took his sister's life is led away in handcuffs, his head bowed, the sound of chains echoing through the hall. For David, it isn't triumph, it's release. The promise he made in 1969, to find the truth, has finally been kept. In 2011, the FBI recognizes Sergeant James Ramsey and Jill Kincaid with the Latent Hit of the Year award for their precision and persistence. But the real honor belongs to David Maxwell, the brother who turned grief into purpose, who became the Ranger because of one cold night in Houston. He spent his life chasing justice for others, but this time, justice finally chased back, for his sister. Because sometimes the law doesn't find the truth. It follows someone who refuses to stop looking for it. The confession that took 50 years. It's a humid summer night in 1967 in North Little Rock, Arkansas. The air is thick, the streetlights flicker amber, and 27-year-old James Ricks leans back in his 1964 Oldsmobile, parked along a quiet street. He's just finished work, maybe humming along to the radio, thinking about his little girl asleep at home, about how he's saving up for a new house. He doesn't know that a few blocks away, two men are running from a botched robbery, their getaway car broken down, their nerves shot. They need another vehicle. Fast. The night goes still. Then, tap, tap, tap on his driver's window. What happens next will remain buried for half a century. The next morning, when James doesn't show up for work, his family starts calling. Police find his Oldsmobile missing. Days turn into weeks. Then, on August 27, 1967, hikers walking through a wooded area outside North Little Rock stumble on something in the brush. A human form, half covered in leaves. The body is identified as James Ricks. He'd been shot and left in the woods, far from home. Detectives follow the only clue they have, the stolen Oldsmobile. It turns up abandoned in Illinois, nearly 500 miles away. Inside, fingerprints, clear, fresh. They belong to two brothers, both recently arrested for robbery across state lines. Their names are logged. The case should be open and shut. But prosecutors can't tie them directly to the killing. So the brothers are charged only with interstate vehicle theft. They serve time for that, not for murder. The file is boxed, stamped Unsolved 1967, and placed on a shelf in the Pulaski County Evidence Vault. Nearly 5 decades roll by. The world changes. New presidents, new wars, new technology. But James Ricks's name sits untouched in an aging case binder. Then, more than 1,100 miles away, in Dover, Delaware, an FBI special agent named Justin Downen gets a call. It's 2013. The man on the phone says his brother-in-law's cellmate has been talking, bragging, even, about a killing from the 1960s, a killing in Arkansas. Downen has never heard of James Ricks, but he listens. The details are specific. A stolen Oldsmobile, 2 brothers, a man found in the woods. It matches a forgotten file from another era. Downen teams up with Officer Derek Calloway from the Laurel Police Department, a small-town investigator known for chasing long-odds leads. Together, They traveled to Sussex Correctional Institution in Georgetown, Delaware, to meet the inmate who made the claim. The man, serving time on drug charges, doesn't hesitate. He describes how his cellmate, now in his 60s, talked late into the night from the bottom bunk, reliving a crime from his youth. He said he and his brother had stolen a car after a robbery went wrong. There'd been a man inside. A fight. Shots. A drive through the night with a wounded passenger locked in the trunk. Then silence. The inmate had even taken notes, pages of them, written while his cellmate talked in the dark. It sounds unbelievable, but every detail lines up with the 1967 police report. The model of the car, the location of the body, the number of gunshots. Special Agent Downen later said, "There's just no way this story isn't true." Then it was a matter of how we'd prove it. Proving it would take patience. The suspect was still behind bars for an unrelated crime. An old man now. So Downen and Calloway decide to wait. 2 years pass. The case moves quietly behind the scenes. Downen checks the prison roster once a month, waiting for a change in status. In August 2014, the call finally comes. The man has just been released that morning. It's now or never. Downen and Calloway devise a plan with the Delaware Department of Probation and Parole. The goal, to catch him confessing again, this time on tape. They arrange for his former cellmate, now a cooperating witness, to show up at the same probation office lobby at the exact same time. The man wears a hidden recorder. The door opens. The two ex-cellmates lock eyes. "Man, it's been a long time," one says. "Yeah," the other replies. "A long time since Arkansas." They talk in the lobby, then in a nearby truck. As the recorder rolls, he retells everything. The night in North Little Rock, the broken getaway car, the man in the Oldsmobile who never made it home. He even describes the moment his brother told him to do it. He said, "You have to finish it," the man admits. "So I did." The confession is clear, chilling, and complete, and the man's name is James Clay. Within hours, he's arrested again. This time not for theft, but for murder. He's extradited to Little Rock, Arkansas, and faces charges in the same courthouse that handled his stolen car case nearly 50 years earlier. His attorney argues the confession is inadmissible. The judge disagrees. The tape plays. The courtroom falls silent as the old man's voice fills the room, describing a murder he thought the world had forgotten. In 2015, he pleads guilty to first-degree murder and is sentenced to 20 years in prison. He's 67 years old. For him, it's effectively a life sentence. When FBI agents call the Ricks family, James's brother Julius nearly drops the phone. He's 74 now, living in the same area where he and James grew up. He says softly, "It was a miracle, what they did." A miracle when they called and said that the guy had talked in jail. He remembers James as a musician, always laughing, the one who played guitar on the porch after church. "It was rough," Julius says. "I really missed him." Nearly 5 decades of questions had finally found an answer. For Special Agent Justin Downen and Officer Derek Calloway, the case isn't about headlines or awards. It's about the simple belief that no victim should ever be forgotten. "No one would have criticized us if we didn't follow through," Downen said later. "But we knew it was the right thing to do, and we'd want someone to do it for us." And that's exactly what they did. Almost 50 years after that hot Arkansas night in 1967, the truth caught up with the man who thought time was on his side. Justice had been waiting, patient, silent, but undefeated. Because time may bury a story, but the truth always digs its way back.